We are in this incredible space, and upstairs, make sure you get the tour. There is a podcast studio that she's created specifically for podcasts. So Amber, why is it important for us to create content with excellence? And what do we look for in a studio when we want to produce a show?
I would say that the thing that I think is one of the most important parts of creating content is consistency when you're looking for the excellence level. It's great to just be willy-nilly content creator, and there's a space for that and a place for that. And I think you need to know what it is that you're wanting to achieve. You have one time to have the first impression. No pressure. And it's not to be pressure, it's just do your homework on what you want and what excellent level you can achieve and what is there, and figure out what that looks like. So I tried to create a space that we did a lot of that for you. We have an excellent stage for you. We have excellent people to help produce it, the right equipment. We have everything for you already. You just have to come with all your ideas and thoughts and what you want to communicate to the world. So it was important to me. I couldn't find it when I wanted it. When I wanted to create a show, when I wanted to share a message, and that bar, that standard for me was really high because I wanted to have I wanted to step out with my best foot forward. And I know that's not everybody's goal, that just happened to be mine, but I couldn't find it, so I created it. And then I wanted to be able to offer that to people that were looking for that level of excellence in their storytelling.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And I think everything that we should do it to the very best of our ability, whatever that is. So Ray, I'm going to ask you a question. What is a critical thing before you ever pick up the mic? What do you advise the podcasters that you coach? What do you say these are the crucial steps before you ever sit down before the mic?
Number one is always positioning. So usually when we get approached to start a podcast, they are not different from the last podcast that, people have asked us to launch. And everyone thinks they have the very first idea, the very first podcast. But what positioning basically is I always use like bottles of water or the water industry as an example. When you go into, your grocery store, you go to the water section, there are tons of different types of water. The differentiators are the positioning factors that make that water different. So I'm into Liquid Death right now. I don't know if anyone drinks Liquid Death.
You and every other creator out there.
Right?
Yes.
Talk about branding. I mean, come on, right? They set themselves apart with their brand.
Yeah. And positioning that makes it different. So you have to think about your podcast through the same lens. So one of the first things we do is we talk to the audience, whether that's the customer themselves doing that, or we'll go out and actually talk to 5 to 10 people in their target listener demographic. So we talk to them, but we also listen to other podcasts that are in similar categories to find what's their white space, what's the gap, what is no one else talking about. And then we start to get into the positioning and figuring out what is your white space, what is the area that is unique to you, unique to your identity, and that really helps the show to stand out. One last point on this is another show I like is First 48. So if you think about that show, what makes it different from other crime shows is that they have to solve the crime in the first 48 hours, right? Yeah. So, but that is the positioning of the show that made that show propel, because I always call it like when people are trying to talk to their friends about your show, they're snapping their finger. Oh, it's that show about they solve a crime in the first 48, and they don't remember the name, they don't remember the characters, they don't remember anything. They remember the concept. Yeah. Right. So the concept is what you need to really work on and iron out and make it your own.
So I'm gonna throw this out to anybody. How do you conduct research? So let's say for people that you're gonna bring on the show, how do you conduct research, or how do you encourage people to do their research for their guests?
That's one. Okay.
We're looking.
So it's one of those things where I'm the research guy. Like I love research. So when it comes to research, I'm very hands-on, just really talking to people. There's AI tools, there's different things where you can do research, but there is nothing like sitting down with a person during a pre-interview and having a conversation with them. So I typically start there. And if we're doing a series, I'll interview people that are a part of that series or connected to that ecosystem to try to get an understanding of their world. Now, I'm usually not the subject matter expert for the shows that I'm researching. So I really have to like spend a couple of weeks like diving into a new world, you know? So yeah, that's usually where I start with pre-interviews, doing research.
How long does that take you? How much time do you spend personally?
I would say, let's just say like a typical podcast, probably about 2 to 3 hours during research.
Okay. And Amber, how much time do you spend researching? And the reason I want to show y'all this is because podcasting is a lot of work.
It is
it's a lot of work. So how long do you spend?
Especially fully producing at this level is a lot of work, you know, in your pre-production setup. Well, one, I try to tailor everything to what the guest has to offer. You know, I mean, getting to know who your guest is. So we'll take, I mean, I've had both of them. Sorry, I haven't had you on. We'll have you on the podcast. 2 totally different worlds they live in. I don't know the first thing about editing, okay? And he's master at it. So I'm not going to try to...
learning every episode that you watch. Can we change that? Can we change that?
Yeah, I am.
I'm sure Yelly would too.
Yep, Yelly up there too.
Yep.
But I try to send them questions beforehand. So when you're invited to be on the podcast, we send you a list of questions that we would like for you to answer. And that kind of gives us a way of setting up the conversation, right? For me, mine is tailored to a certain industry. So you just have to be in the industry. And I am not setting myself up to be the expert in that. That's why I'm interviewing the experts in a certain area and trying to make those vary and be different to try to cover the whole thing and stay true to the genre that we're in.
What equipment do you recommend for someone who's just starting out in a podcast? So that might look different than a professional setup,
Right.
But
Yeah, I think if you really focus on just getting the best sound quality you can, audio or video podcast. Let's just start with audio. I mean, just get you can spend $100 on a mic that's totally good enough that would sound amazing. And in terms of mics, get a dynamic mic and not a condenser mic, because it rejects the sound around you a lot easier. So like if your idea was to interview people in a Starbucks, which I don't necessarily recommend, but if it's, you have a lot of background noise, right? So at least a dynamic mic, you have a hope of rejecting that background sound and you can still hear the speaker. Just get an SM58. Sure, it's $100. Or there's a Audio Technica one I use is $80, and it sounds like this mic just because of the processing I put on it in Audition.
we use Rode pod mics,
Yeah,
same thing.
those are great.
It's got
Yeah.
built-in pop filters.
Yeah.
So if you pop your P's or you have, it's a D, you have your D's and your S's if you hit them
your
hard.
plosives, you get rid of the
Yeah.
plosive. So this is pretty good with that. So this is a classic radio mic. That's why you see them all the time on podcasts. They've been around for 30 years, but now they're like a big second coming of the SM7. The RE20 is another one that's in the same class by Electro Voice. They're about $400. You don't need this kind of a mic to get this kind of sound though. Like at least you start the standard higher with this mic, but you can get there if you know what you're doing. Just don't eat the mic, get a dynamic mic, have about 3 inches away from you. And also, like if you're just doing an audio podcast, go in your bedroom where there's a lot of cloth and textiles to absorb all the sound, or go in your closet, like if you're afraid of it, or if it sounds amazing in there. You'll sound like a voiceover guy. You'll sound like Morgan Freeman when you're in there. So that's just really important. And then one other little thing is a lot of people forget, even on high-end podcasts, I hear this as a kind of pet peeve, is they don't put compression on their on their mic. And you can do that in the hardware stage or when you're recording it. There's ways you can do that. Or the easiest is in software, even if you just use GarageBand on a mic, on a Mac, or similar software on a PC.
How do you ensure optimal sound quality, and what tools and techniques do you recommend to people?
Okay, so I love that you guys were talking about sound treatment, and it's not to be confused with sound proofing. A lot of people say, I want my room soundproof. Soundproof is where you're doing double sheetrock and you're tearing down walls. Sound treatment is controlling the echoes and the reverbs and the reflections off the wall. So this place is fully treated, so there's not reflections and echo. So you want to start there. And I'm an audio engineer by trade, went to school for it. So where you start with that is, I don't know if they still do this at Guitar Center, but you can go in and test out mics. So that's probably the best approach, because like me and him, we could talk gear all day and have differences. No two production people are going to agree, you know? So the best thing to do is to go and listen to the mic yourself and see what sounds best on your voice. Some people don't like the SM7B because it might make them sound too deep. Some people love it because they love that bass in their voice. Some people love an electro voice, like you mentioned, where it's kind of neutral. So I would recommend, trying to test out some mics. That's what I love to do. See what sounds best on that person's voice. And also, when it comes to post-production, if you do the pre-production right, the post-production is cheaper.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, 1,000,000%.
I'm telling you that from a person who does the post-production.
Yeah.
And the hours go up if the room's not treated, and I'm trying to do ninja work on it, to make it sound good, so.
But if you're gonna consult with somebody who's just starting out, do you tell them video or audio or both?
Well, I think audio, you're right. Audio is way easier by like magnitude order. Like I said, you can record in a closet, but if you're doing that in a video, well, some influencers might do that while they're crying or something.
Yes,
but anyway, that's another video. But the editing is so much easier just for audio. I think it's a great idea going forward, though, to record if you can. Like I'm more like have done it for other people my whole career, and now I'm just kind of flipping around myself to put myself into the front of the camera more. So I have a camera that's just set up all the time. That's one of the things I do. I leave it set up with a teleprompter on it, with a mic there, so that when I get inspiration to write something out, like mostly I'm doing like Instagram reels and stuff, but I'm going to switch my podcast, which has only been audio up to now, but I'm going to go audio video. But if you can have it ready to go, that makes it so much easier. And it's just one camera, and I know how to light myself. It's
lighting
a lot easier.
is so important. We didn't even talk about lighting, but
Lighting's a
lighting
whole
is
thing.
crucial. It is.
For sure.
What are the key differences in production, editing, and distribution between video and audio? So I know that there's different types of software. So at Spark Media, what we recommend is Hindenburg for post-production, because it's made for podcasts, specifically to edit podcasts. So we use Hindenburg, and it's like expensive, but it's really, really good. And one of the things that I love about it, or my editor, I would say, loves about it, is he can build a voice profile on me and then apply that to every episode. And there's things that are unique to me and what I do, and that just helps. There's some auto leveling. Y'all know about this way more than I do, but I know that I can, be different. I can be louder or softer, or I can be interviewing someone else who is in a remote location and they sound different. But Hindenburg is a great product, but I'm sure y'all have other
That sounds awesome. I haven't heard of that one yet. So
yeah, I mean, it's specifically made, but it's also, they have an audiobook version. So if any of you are authors, it's also made because audiobook standards are super, super high. So they also have it for audiobooks as well.
Oh, that's
cool.
I think what I would say to that is, go at it with the intention of eventually handing it off to someone, because everyone's podcast is going to be famous and, blow up in here. So, but really have that intention in mind, because you can hand it off to an editor eventually, that can, kind of handle the editing for you. So it's good to kind of learn some of the nuances. I'm a Mac user, so I'm like GarageBand if you're starting off, and then progress into Logic. So we use either we take in GarageBand sessions or we take in Logic sessions, and we edit from there. But I'm not too familiar with the PC world, sorry. But I know that GarageBand is free, easy to get started, tons of videos. That's another thing. You probably want to find a software that has a lot of videos, or, there's engineers out there that use it, which is probably more of a Pro Tools. A lot of engineers use Logic, but they can help you, if you ever get stuck or you want to hand it off or you need some help. They're probably going to be using Audition. Hindenburg is getting popular, and Logic. So
yeah,
okay.
It's what I want y'all to see is that there are a lot of different components, and we've touched on kind of some of the basics that you need to know before you pick up the mic, what kind of equipment that you have, should you do audio or video. And my final question for this panel is, how can people connect with you? And if you are here tonight and you are taking photos, which we encourage you, take photos, tag the studio, they will share it. So make sure that you're doing that and tag us in it, and we'll repost it. But how do they connect with you in the studio, Amber?
Yeah, well, we're across every possible platform there is. So you can find us at For the One Studio. And our website, you can go there, and lots of people are, our podcast, our video podcast, Set Life Inspiring Stories of the Entertainment Industry, is on YouTube and every platform you can be on. And that's a perk of the video podcasting that we were talking about. So anywhere you can get a podcast, you can find us on all of that. So, and it is the number 4, the word 1 and studio. That's how you find us.
Awesome. Dan, where can we connect with you?
So podcast I have it's called Production Pro. It's on iTunes, Spotify, and I'm woefully behind on my episodes, so I'm working on that. But and then also Instagram, if you're on there, that's my most current place to connect with me, at Dan Rubottom. And then danrubottom.com if you need more production work or help.
Excellent. Ray?
Yes, so my website, speakerboxmedia.com, that's kind of the hub, and I'm a big LinkedIn guy, so I'm usually on LinkedIn 24/7. I don't even know how there's a handle on there. You just search me, Ray Smith, you'll find me, Ray Smith Houston, Speakerbox Media, or
Excellent.
connect with me after. I have a QR code, so nice.
Yeah, great. And Misty Phillip with Spark Media. I didn't mention that we have now 3 podcasts. So one is called By His Grace. That's an interview show that's in the top 1%. My second podcast I do with my handsome husband back there. It's called Spark Influence. And this year we just launched a branded podcast for Spark Media that we recorded at last year's conference with a guy named Larry Roberts, who will be speaking about AI at the conference. And he interviewed people about their shows and problems that they have or how they got started, what they like about Spark. So that's called Spark Media Conversations. They're really, really short episodes. So I encourage you to check those out. My cards are back there, sparkmedia.ventures, and you can find me everywhere at Misty Phillip. So let's give this panel a round of applause, and we will bring up our next panel. So thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Misty.
Thank you.